Hi, it says the recording's in progress.
Hello. Can you not hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Oh, okay.
Can we turn it off? Or we can leave it on and edit it out. Yeah.
No. Oh, is it recording already? Okay. Hello, everyone. While we're waiting, please feel free to type into the chat box where you are zooming in from today and one word to describe how you're feeling. So while we're letting people in, since it's already 1:01 here Eastern time, let me introduce myself. My name is Nicole Anderson, and I oversee Alumni Career Services in Tufts Career Center. Welcome to today's webinar. We're presenting today Job Search Success Secrets featuring Leslie Warner, my colleague from Alumni Career Services. We have two main goals in Alumni Career Services. One is to present programs like this, webinars, networking events, and other events across the country. We have many online events happening through the Alumni Engagement Office, and those are for alums from all schools. So I'll put the link to our Alumni and Friends calendar into the chat when I'm done with this intro. Our second goal in Alumni Career Services is to foster connections between alumni and students. We have a LinkedIn group with over 22,000 people. We have our HERD. The HERD is for alumni and students in arts and sciences and engineering and the School of Museum of Fine Arts. That's another resource. The HERD currently has about 8,000 members. But let's talk about today's webinar. We'll be presenting for about 50 minutes. We'll try our best to address your questions during the session, so you can type those into the chat box. And if we don't get to them during the session, we're going to stay on for a little bit when the webinar ends. We are recording this webinar, and you'll be able to find it on the Alumni Career Services YouTube playlist within the week. So now I'd like to introduce our speaker. Actually, before that, I want to acknowledge that the Office of Alumni Relations has a community values statement, and I'll post that into the chat box when I'm finished with my intro. So let me introduce Leslie. Leslie Warner is an assistant director in the Office of Alumni Career Services. And here's Leslie's intro. Her path to career coaching began in college when she stumbled into being a Career Center peer advisor. Since then, she's been happily helping people connect with the work that they love. She did her undergraduate degree in English and has a master's in counseling psychology. She's had a variety of jobs, including helping staff at an Army base that was closing and helping people affected by layoffs. She learned about the other side of hiring through her work as a recruiter in human resources. And at Tufts, she's helped alumni for a very long time now, over 10 years, helping alums through all career stages manage their careers, including job search, on-the-job success, applying to graduate school, and finding meaning and purpose at any age. She meets one-on-one with alumni, and she enjoys designing and leading workshops and webinars. She especially loves helping others learn strategies so they can be successful throughout their lives. So now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Leslie.
Thank you, Nicole. And welcome, everybody. And as Nicole mentioned, you can put questions into the chat at any time, and then I'll pause here and there to address them, as well as allowing a little extra time at the end to catch up with questions. And you can turn your camera off if you feel more comfortable. You can leave it on if you want to. I won't be able to see most of your faces because the way, as you know, the way Zoom works, when I share my screen, that'll take up most of my screen, but whatever you're comfortable with is fine. And we are recording the session, and it will be available on our YouTube channel for you to view later. So let me share my screen and get going. Job search success secrets. You'll see the secrets are not anything that I have invented or created. It's really the sort of ongoing wisdom that's been true forever in the job search. There's a few tweaks that you'll hear about that are more recently developed, like the online aspect, but mostly the secrets are the same as they've been for 20, 30, 40 years. But we'll see more about that. Okay. Oops, my down button isn't working. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, what we're going to talk about is how as I said, how the job search is and isn't different from what it was 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Preparation for the job search, the 4 main sort of primary buckets of job search methods, some tips for an effective search, and so many resources. First, I have to warn you, this is not the kind of clean, simple PowerPoint with a few key ideas and a great visual. It's more like a booklet. And I also have a lot of information there, which I won't touch on every single point verbally, but I'll highlight what's important and I'll highlight what's there in the handout, in the PowerPoint. And again, you can go over it yourself. You can review it later once it's posted online. It's not ideal as a training methodology, but I just really want to share some of the things I've learned over the years and some of the newer tweaks and changes that have come up. So how the job search is and isn't different now. Hiring patterns do vary by industry and job function. You know, some companies are, even right now, today, what you read about layoffs in the news, you read about layoffs in the tech sector, and that's all true, but it affects different companies differently, even within the same industry or the same sector or the same city. And even within the company, there could be a company that was doing broad layoffs, but may be hiring in selective departments. So you can't assume just because you read something in the paper that means your job function, your goal is not going to happen. It may take more work, it may take more networking and research, but it really is widely varying. Now, the other thing about the job search now is, yes, it's a little, there are, certainly compared to several decades ago, you still need the traditional tools of a resume, a cover letter that is targeted to what you're applying to, good interviewing skills, all of the usual tools. And then there's some additional things you'll want to be doing about online platforms such as LinkedIn, possibly other ones, depending on your industry that we'll mention. And another definite trend change, certainly compared to 20 years ago, is visibility. Being known, being seen is so important. It was always important, but it's even more important now when you have these ways of being visible, both in the old-fashioned ways, like being in your professional association, and in the more recent ways, like being active or findable online in your professional, with your professional brand. And the other thing I'll say that's somewhat different now is just with all the volatility in our world, COVID, economic volatility, self-care, mindset, and I'll talk more about what that means, and building relationships, i.e. networking, are more important than ever now. So we'll talk more about that. So job search support. This is the thing, especially for people going, it's true anytime you're in a job search, but especially for people in a full-time job search. One of the mistakes that I commonly see is people jumping into the search. Maybe it's excitement, maybe it's anxiety, but whatever the mixture of emotions is, they jump in without really organizing and thinking through their support needs ahead of time, because it really helps set up, if you're in art sciences and engineering or School of the Museum of Fine Arts, you can make an individual appointment with our Career Center for check-in or sounding board or job search support. from other tough schools and programs. Check with your school about what's available in terms of resources that are specific for you. You want to set up systems, either it's physical space, paper resource and files, definitely online systems and ways of keeping track of your information. And then especially with a full-time search, reach out to friends for support and really talk through how specifically they can help. You might have one friend that's really great for emotional support, picking you up when you have a tough day in the job search, or you're just feeling discouraged or frustrated. Again, I'm not saying the job search is all negative, but it is the hardest. Most people say full-time job search is the hardest job they've ever done. So think about emotional support, think about tactical support. That's something like you might have a friend who's a really good writer and editor. They don't have to be a career coach, but if they're a good writer and editor, they can help you look at writing samples or at your cover letter or your resume. And a job search success team or buddy, that's something I can talk more about at the end. You can also Google to find more resources, but it's basically a way to have an accountability coach that's a peer or friend, and you connect once a week to go over specific action items that you committed to and that your partner committed to, and just check in. How did that go? What got in the way? And that's research proves that really, really helps people stay on track. And being your own project manager, really committing to the specific actions in your calendar each week. And this is true for a part-time or a full-time job search. And your situation will vary. There was certainly one time in my long career where I was in a very stressful job at work. I was working in human resources at Mass General when they were going through their merger with Brigham and Women's Hospital. Any of you that have been working at a place while it's going through a merger knows it's very stressful and challenging. You either know that your department will be impacted, like we did in HR, or like in HR, we were seeing, everyone thought we knew everything about what was going to be happening, what the plans were for layoffs, when we really didn't know anything. It was being decided 4 levels above us, and we were the second to last to know. So very stressful. And I knew, all I could do was do the online job search for a few hours on the weekend. My hours were too long and the stress was too high. And I knew that wasn't, the most effective, highly recommended job search approach, but that was what I could manage, and it worked out. You'll be happy to hear. I found something that was a longer commute and a big pay cut, but got me back into career coaching and was perfect in every other way. So you adjust my advice to fit your situation, your mileage. But ideally, even with my once chunk of time on the weekend, I was my own project manager. I knew what I was committing to each week, and then I would check in and how I could improve that or support that the next week. The other thing about preparation, both before and during the job search, is building on the resilience that you already have. Resilience means the ability to recover or bounce back from a challenge or difficulty. And you can increase resilience, maybe exercise, walking, yoga, dance. Highly recommend mindfulness, meditation, or guided visualization. If those are tools you've used in the past, or maybe you've done occasional yoga, full-time job search is the time to increase it. Your body and mind are going to need more of that calming, that focusing, and that relaxation. If you're in a full-time job and you're job searching on the side, build in little bits and sound bites of this whenever you can. And again, if it's already part of your toolkit, pay more attention to it now in a job search because you'll need it more. And if it isn't part of your experience or your past, I'll give tons of links and resources at the end about different ways you can try it out in free resources online, or and trying different methods, different voices, different ways of trying it to see what works for you. Mindset is all about, and again, if you've been out in the world, whether or not you've been job searching, you may not have thought in terms of mindset, but you're using it all the time. What can I control? What can I get done today? As a way to help not just manage stress, but also work on a challenging situation or problem. The power of mindset is it's the difference between, for example, the job search is too hard, there's nothing out there, and this is taking forever, and if you can switch that to my top target company isn't hiring now or yet. What can I do is connect with more people in the industry, learn about trends, really clearly identify what skills I could be polishing or developing or adding, brainstorming with this person or that person about other companies or industries or job functions that I could target. You know, that word yet is very powerful. These are cognitive tools, which again, you can use with your children or family members. You can use in other situations too. I just want to mention it a little here now. Another mindset example, this is impossible versus I've met challenges before. How can those strategies that I used back then help here? That's actually something I've used a lot in workshops where I have people sort of diagram on a timeline times in their lives when they've just had a big challenge or a lot of change happening or a big change, even if there weren't a lot of different changes. And then writing down, sort of journaling on, what did I do when that time of change was occurring? How did I deal with it? And what are the things I could use that I've learned or that I used back then? And take mindfulness breaks. Again, even if it's 2 minutes to walk around outside, it helps with whatever you're working on. So more about preparing for your search. You need to have clear answers for why did you leave your job? What are you doing now or lately? And that's called your public statement because we distinguish it between the private statement, which is to your inner circle, close friends, family members, who you can trust not to gossip and blab about whatever your situation is, the challenges you're facing at work or the goals that you have. Again, this is different from your family and friends can help spread the word in a positive way about what you're looking for, what kind of company, what kind of opportunity. But particularly if you've been laid off or left a job under any sort of challenging situation, which happens to all of us at one time or another, you need to rehearse a statement that's truthful, but that doesn't share all the emotional part of it. The emotional part of it, your feelings about the situation, about your manager, about the company's decisions or how they handled things, that belongs in that tight inner circle. Again, common mistake, certainly very common because we're human. Some of us that are external processors need to talk about things to understand them or put them in perspective. And a common mistake is to share that processing information a little too widely, more like to the acquaintance level, instead of, again, the best thing for you and your job search is to keep the emotional processing, which you need to do, into your journal and into your tight inner circle. And then the public statement is something like, my company, like many others in the tech sector, was affected by economic trends and changes. And a couple of months ago, my position, along with many others, or along with 10% of the workforce, or whatever the context is, was affected. And now I'm looking at da da da. That's a sample public statement. Another thing, common mistake that people make leaping into the job search is not taking even a slight pause to do a little self-assessment. You don't have to take a bunch of questionnaires or online tests, and we don't call them tests, but online assessments, but at least to hit the pause button and think, what are my goals now? What do I need from my work? What are my preferences? And what are my skills? What are my assets that I most want to be using right now? So doing at least some of that self-review before you jump into the search really helps you be more focused and more efficient and more likely to get things that at least meet some of those goals and needs. And you can start doing research as you're preparing, and you'll continue to do research, reading trade and industry journals, which you can get access to through the Tufts online community, which has a It's also used as a fire, in addition to mostly being a database to connect you with other alumni, find alumni email addresses. It has a button of resources and career resources. And when you click on that after you log in, it's access to some library databases. And the library databases have full text articles, which is so helpful. You can search for things that aren't available free online, like a trade journal. My favorite being titles like Boot and Shoe Journal, right? No one's reading that out in the streets or in Boston or whatever, but they're reading it if they're in that industry or interested in that industry. So every industry has them, and some job functions have them too. Your professional association websites can also be super helpful. Sometimes they'll have articles or journals or newsletters, but they also have other kinds of resources and lists. And those articles about the companies you're interested in or about industry trends really help you feel more confident going into interviews. It can really give you great information to put into a cover letter or to help your thinking as you're thinking about cover letters, and super, super helpful for prepping for interviews, for going beyond the website, the company website in your research. Now, next thing you're going to do, ideally, preparation for the job search, is work on defining what would your ideal target job look like. And, you know, this may be challenging if you haven't thought this way before, and if you're sort of feeling the urge to jump into the search, or maybe you're considering some different options, but at least put some energy into it and try and see which of these criteria can you define? What would your preference be? Knowing that you're willing to compromise for industry, for location or commute, or again, possibility for hybrid or remote. That could be a separate criteria. The company culture, what would that look like in your ideal preference? What are the skills you get to use? What are the problems you get to work on? Opportunities for advancement, learning, and then as well as pay and benefits. And then think about any other criteria that are important for you. I sometimes have people who add that they want to see women and other diverse groups represented in senior management in their company. People want to see not just a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion policy or statement on the company's website, but maybe some information about what they're actually doing in those areas. What actions have they been taking? And some of these things are things you might need to do deeper research or networking to learn about, but at least define them as best as you can. And then you start creating your target company list, your target organization list. And this is, I say 20 to 25 companies that meet your criteria, or at least that you think might meet some of your criteria based on what you know so far. That's really an arbitrary number that I picked. If they're small companies, you need more of them. And that's just because, unless, you can have, 10 dream companies on your list if you're willing to have a very long job search, because you don't know. It may take more time for those top 10 dream companies to need you in the right level, the right area, right, to have the business needs. And you're going to be finding them sometimes with lists or that you can find online. Sometimes definitely through networking. When you're having a meeting with somebody and you show them, here's 5 or 10 companies I've been focusing on, targeting, researching, which other organizations should I be looking at? Which other companies? I use the word company, but that includes nonprofits. It's just a shorthand. Now, public libraries often have some really great online tools these days. And you want to spend 5 or 10 minutes with the reference librarian, either on the phone or in person, because some of their websites are not super well organized to help you find exactly what you want. They have so many different databases and options, but they often have like a searchable business or company database. We call it a targeting, company targeting database, but libraries don't call it that. And that means you can say, I want public relations companies with at least, and they list size either by size of employees or size of $1 million of business. So public relations companies with at least 100 employees in Chicago. Boom. And these databases can give you that list. Sometimes you can find lists like that just by searching on Google, but these databases let you do very, very refined searches, and they let you include keywords. It's they're really terrific. Oh, wait, my down button, there it goes. Oh, before I get to that, if you think about it, I'm spending a lot of time on this target organization, target job thing. Why is this so important? Well, it really helps make your job search more efficient because it gives you a way to focus your time, your energy, and effort, right? And increases your chances of getting a job that fits you. No, will it meet all 12 of your criteria perfectly? No, like mine when I compromised and drove farther and took a big pay cut, but was 1,000% happier and back into my career coaching work that I had done previously. So like I did, you'll make thoughtful trade-offs, you'll make compromises when necessary, but you'll have your information there to help you think about that. And having that list of what your targets are helps you maintain some motivation and control. You're not just reacting to online job ads. You're allowed to look at online job ads and apply for them. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if all you are is reactive in your job search, it helps make it easier to feel, not in control and not sometimes not even knowing what's happening, right? If you apply for some things and you don't hear back from the employer, you don't know if they read your resume. You don't know if your resume would do a good job of opening the door. If you did have, if a human being did read it, right? You don't, it's just kind of a black hole. Do people get jobs from the online job search? Yes, but we'll talk more about that. You want to think of yourself as a one-person marketing and sales company, which you are right now in the job search. And as I call it, it's not cheesy marketing or fake sales. It's authentic selling, right? You want to sell or connect with who needs your product, right? Who needs what you have to offer? So before we move on, any questions coming in through the chat, Nicole?
I don't see any yet, but feel free to
Okay.
type right into the chat, and I'll let you know, Leslie.
This is the stuff that I got my favorite feedback from a very young alum. I think he was a new grad some years back when I was presenting it in a workshop, and he wrote in that I had totally shifted his paradigm. And that just really warmed my heart. It's like, yep, for those of you that have done job searches before or been out in the working world for a while, this may not be news. What I'm offering today may not be really new information, but hopefully it'll be, it may be new to some of you, and hopefully it'll be a support and a reminder to sort of refocus on what we know works, which we'll talk about. So you're going to prepare your marketing documents, which are, I see someone raise their hand. Please put your question into the chat or comment or whatever you want to share, because we're not taking spoken questions in this, just in the interest of the size of the group and time. Your resume, you really want to be focused on your target industry, target job function. And there are some ways to check on that. You can certainly do manual charts where you get job ads that you print out, or however you could do it on your computer, but and out of each job ad, you pull all the keywords and then you look for those keywords in your resume. There's also a shortcut called Job Scan, which is a website where you basically plug your resume in one side, plug the job ad in to the other. It uses the same kinds of algorithms that fancy recruiters pay to use on LinkedIn or in other online searching that they do. And it tells you which words or skill words or deliverable words are missing, which are there and which are missing, comparing your resume to the job ad. So that can be helpful because you do want to use your target industry and function language. The sort of classic example is the the elementary school teacher who's transitioning to corporate training, they're not going to pretend that they've already done corporate training, but they want at least some of their language on their resume to be adult training language, like developing curriculum and evaluating learning objectives and learning needs and return on investment and presenting and teaching. You sort of make sure that the language of your target is reflected as much as it truthfully can be. And the cover letter, of course, customizing for each job. Now, I get great questions, and live or in-person workshops are really fun, where I ask people if they think, cover letters are read in their industry. You'll sometimes hear people say, oh, I'm applying for such and such in tech. They never read cover letters. And I'll say, well, if you know that for a fact about your specific target company, and you've heard that verified by people on the inside, including hiring managers, okay, fine. But otherwise, it's worth your while to do it, because it really gives you a chance to show that you understand their needs and you're writing and focusing specifically to their business needs. And it's not generic, and it's not a template, although a template can kind of help guide you to what should be included, but it's basically reverse engineering from the job ad on what's most important and what's their pain point, their biggest business challenge. To get ideas about how to do your cover letter and resume, we have recorded webinars, more than one, on these topics. There's also resources on the Career Center website. And again, I'll have some resources listed at the end. For many people, it helps to look at samples, either of resumes or cover letters, just to see how other people are doing it. And there are various places you can look for those, both on our website and out in books and resources. LinkedIn. That's a big topic, which has its own workshops on our YouTube channel. But basically, you want it to, again, super focused in language and skills presented and values and brand and all of that on your target job function, target industry, and what their needs are. The challenge is, right, and I had this once there was a time when I was in transition and I was applying for some recruiter jobs, which was really my plan B, but I didn't tell them that, and career counseling, career coaching jobs. And so, yeah, my resumes were different, my cover letters were different, but my LinkedIn, there was only one LinkedIn, right? So I had to make it speak to both of those audiences. So look for online resources and workshops on LinkedIn to help you do that. And that's the link to our YouTube channel. Nicole, any questions so far? Not yet.
We just had one question about the job scan resource.
Yeah.
So I put the link into the chat.
Thank you. Yes, it is a website, which last time I checked was still free. Sometimes there'll be a resource like that that starts out free and then changes, but for now, as far as I know, it's still free. So your marketing presentations are going to be, how do you introduce yourself verbally? In a networking situation, you need to be able to speak to, who am I? What am I best at? And what do I need them to know about me now? And that takes some scripting and practice, not to memorize. For most of us who are not actors, memorizing is a bad idea, but knowing what one of my clients called the chord changes, like an outline, like your key points in order. For interviews, that would be more the, 2 minutes-ish answer to tell me about yourself, which again, not hard once you plan it and think about it ahead of time. Again, we've got resources on our website about interviewing, and we've also got webinars recorded, different approaches, different ways of building your skill for interviewing. Key mistake people make with interviewing is they may prepare and research and think and write notes, but sometimes people forget that they need to practice saying it out loud. Again, not to memorize, but to be practiced with telling the story and responding to common questions. Preparing reference. Yeah.
Oh, we do have a couple of questions.
Great.
Asked. This is from Mark. How do you come through the online wall? to reach and speak with someone directly. And if I can reach a specific person directly, or it seems like a black hole. Also,
Yes.
who has the final say, HR or the hiring manager?
Oh, the first question about how do you not just be into the black hole of the online job search. I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. So thank you for the preview. I'll get there. The second one is easy to answer. Most of the time in most companies, there's one main hiring manager who has the final say. However, different processes in different companies can work different ways. And some companies, for example, use a hiring committee that has a lot of influence, that yes, the hiring manager is the decider or is the hiring manager, but the hiring committee has a lot of control or influence over who gets passed along for different interview stages. And HR in some companies is the one that receives, in many companies, they receive all of the resumes that come in, either via email or into what I used to call the database in the sky, but now it's in the cloud. So it really is, and my metaphor is a little too apt. And HR is in many larger companies that do it this way, pulls what they think are the qualified people from the 50 or 100 or 200. When I say something that's in the hundreds for applicants, I can promise you they're not all qualified. I mean, I've been in hiring roles. Those of you on the call who have been in hiring roles could confirm that as well if you've had access to every single applicant. Some of them are not considered qualified because they have 40 years of experience and the job is looking to hire a new grad. Is that fair or appropriate or right in every case? No, but that's how those HR functions work. That's how they think. My manager wants me to find someone with 0 to 2 years of experience. That's what I'm going to send them. The manager that they're partnering with. So that's how I would answer that. Generally speaking, the hiring manager has the final say, but they may need to get approval from their senior managers. And there definitely can be other voices that can be very influential. And that HR usually is funneling things along, but we'll also be talking in a few minutes about how you can both, communicate and connect with HR, but also not necessarily go around them or instead of them, but just go direct to the person who has the business need, who has the problem or challenge. I talk about preparing references, ideal world, talk on the phone or on Zoom so that you can listen for tone as well as content when you're discussing how they can talk about your strengths and a possible weakness to support you for specific jobs. And then you create an online document with all your reference information. And we have samples for how to do that and how to structure it on our website. Then 4 main job search methods. Okay. This is where I love being in a room doing a live workshop, especially if it has like 100 people in it, because you can have people vote or guess how they think people find jobs or find opportunities. And then you turn to this room of 100 people and say, how many of you got your last job by just responding to an online job ad or an ad or a job listing on a company website with nothing? You didn't do anything else. You just responded to that. And maybe out of the 100, maybe 10 hands go up, maybe 20, depending on the group. Then we ask, well, how many of you got a job through targeted mailing? And we quickly define it to say, you write directly to the hiring manager that you would like to work for when they're not advertising, right? They fit your criteria. They're doing the right stuff in the right way with the right tools, but they're not advertising for you. Well, it's not going to be a huge number, but it's a few hands go up, 1, 2, 3, because guess what? When you do that, you have 0 competition. You don't know if they have the need until you explore, but recruiters, search firms, headhunters, again, in a typical random room, maybe 15 people got their job by a recruiter or search firm. I mean, an outside search firm. They're not part of human resources. They're paid by the company to help them hire. Maybe 10 hands, maybe 20 hands go up. It really depends on the industry. For me, at my level in higher education, recruiters are zero because they don't use them for our level. They use them for executive director and above, deans and so on. In other industries, they'll use recruiters, outside recruiters, because it's a hard to find skill set, or they're just doing a lot of hiring, or yeah, they're willing to pay for the outside help to get the right people quickly. So if for your industry, your field, you'll have to research and find out, are the recruiters really going to be helpful to you? We'll talk about that. Networking, this is the great moment, especially with a live room. Literally 70 out of the 100 hands went up, 65, 70. And there was an audible gasp in the room. Even if people have read the articles, even if people know that networking is important. And we'll talk about how, networking can combine with the other things. For example, you see a job ad, of course, we hope, we want you, we encourage you to be looking for Tufts alumni who work in that company or worked in it in the past. Looking for a second degree connection on LinkedIn. That's somebody where you know someone in common who works at that target company that you're applying to. Can you ask for an introduction, right? When you combine that with responding to the job ad, the chances of having your resume read by a human go up a lot. And in many companies, if they're a current employee, they'll have an employee referral program, which may even give the person, your internal contact, money. Or even if it's at a place like a Tufts where they're not handing out money except for very few specific jobs that get referred to, people still can do it and it still helps. So the reason I spend so much time on this, and I'm going to talk about each of these methods now, is that another very, very common mistake that is so easy to have happen is when you go online, right, and you start looking around LinkedIn jobs, Indeed, specific sites related to your field, you'll see jobs advertised. And then you click and you apply for them, and then you'll see more. And it's very easy to feel like, oh, this is the job search. I wish that those job search sites listing jobs online had a disclaimer at the top. Warning, don't spend too much time on this. Spending all your time on the online job search can lead to anxiety, long job search, not being effective, but they don't. It sort of rewards you by continuing to show you more things. When actually the reason I spend time talking about this and the effectiveness is you want to spend your time in the job search in proportion to the effectiveness of the method of the job search, right? For you. So for you, some time spent connecting with a search firm or a recruiter could be helpful. For me, not so much. But for everyone, more time on the networking piece, both connected to the job ads and just in and around your target or interesting companies. So that's my pep talk for that. More questions coming up.
We do have more questions, Leslie.
Yeah,
so we have someone asking about also, how about DEI for people over 60? So this is referencing, I think, your age in the job search. So that's something that you could address right now, or we could address at the end. There are a couple of other good questions. Should I apply for jobs that I'm overqualified for or underqualified for?
Let me do that one right now, just quickly. A couple of things that are helpful with concern about age is, one is you can find lists online through AARP and other organizations of companies that specifically have made a commitment to hiring a diverse workforce and including not discriminating based on age in an active way and reaching out actively. Some companies are even going so far as to really trying to reach out to people that have actually retired because they need them. They need the talent and they need the knowledge and they need the bodies. So that's one thing you could do. Look for companies that have made a point of stressing that. And the other thing is, again, that networking, talking to people inside of the industry about what they know about companies that have a positive reputation for this type of hire. For example, I hear, anecdotally over the years that the federal government, at least in many roles and in many areas, has a good reputation of not discriminating and of hiring people at over 50, over 60. But again, you'd want to check on specific agencies and your specific skill area. But great question. Next one, Nicole.
Do references truly get checked these days?
Oh, such a great question. And the answer that I'm hearing from my clients is sometimes, amazingly to me, no, but most of the time, yes. And the only times that I've heard about no references being checked at all are when it's a highly technical role and they put you through a lot of testing and hoops and sample problems and technical interviews, so that by the time they've put you through all that, they may feel like, oh, we know as much as we need to know about this person. But I'd say it's rare. You should expect and prepare for references being checked. But again, that's something you can find out with a detailed informational interview with people on the inside. Except to know, no company is going to put down on paper or in their website as an official policy, don't worry, we never check references, right? So this could vary from manager to manager, even within one company. Great questions. Next question.
Should I apply for jobs that I'm overqualified for or underqualified for?
Oh gosh, I'll answer the underqualified for first. The underqualified one is, it depends how close you are. If they want 3 to 5 years of experience and you have 2, but you look at their requirements and you have 80% of what they're looking for, 75% of what they're looking for, you look at the job description and the deliverables and you go, I can absolutely do this. I have the knowledge, right? The industry knowledge, the technical knowledge, the experience and skills to do this. Go for it. And by the same token, sometimes people, especially people who get a master's degree right out of undergrad, are confused by some of the listings because they're not sure, do I apply for the associate or the consultant or the analyst or they're not sure where they fall. The inside person, Tufts alum or other inside contact can, again, in an advice conversation, help you figure out where to position yourself. Overqualified is a little more complicated. The short answer is, if you're able to really position yourself and explain, for example, if you've been a manager for a number of years and now you really don't want that role and you want to be an individual contributor, you need to find a way to tell that story in your cover letter, and know that anytime you don't fit their little kind of square peg in a square hole way of that they may be thinking about things, it may take you more networking to get in the door, to explain why you're a good fit. That's the way I would think about that. But individual situations can be different, and so you may want to get, again, get advice from either a career counselor or multiple people in your target industry, target companies. Good questions. More?
I think that's it for right now.
Okay, good. Because I know we're also, in the interest of time, what I'm going to do now is I want to have more time for questions and not go into all the details of all these slides. But basically, one way to view online job ads is view them as research, as indicators. Don't spend all your time there. Do answer ads, but then look for, can you triangulate and also find a way to get an inside contact at the company? And by the way, we talk about LinkedIn and finding Tufts alumni there who you don't know already, looking for a second degree connection who you can ask for an introduction to. Another way to get inside contacts is, of course, being active in your professional association, maybe attending more than one, but and I talk about this in terms of visibility, and visibility being so important. One type of visibility is online with LinkedIn and with whatever other platforms are important or valued or connecting people in your field. Maybe Twitter, maybe Instagram, maybe something else. And the other type of visibility is the in-person showing up, doing the work one, where you not just attend a professional association meeting, but join it and then join a committee and then be in a leadership role on a committee. That's a longer term strategy, but it can pay off more quickly too. I've had people definitely who've made significant contacts just in 2 or 3 months of connecting with and attending a professional association. We talked about the cover letter, making it customized, getting your name in front of the hiring manager. One way to do that in some cases is, let's say your cover letter and resume are going to that database in the sky, but then you do, I see someone in the waiting room there, you do some research and look online, either on the company website or on LinkedIn, and you're able to have either a definite knowledge of who the hiring manager is or a good guess. Write to them directly. You can send them an email and make your cover letter be the body of the email. You just edit the first line. So it says, I applied online for the business analyst role that I saw posted on your website. And I wanted to write to you directly because I believe I'm such a great fit for this opportunity. And then your subject line is key, right? Making sure your subject line says specifically, business analyst, applying business analyst, comma, 3 years experience in automotive industry, or whatever the relevant sell point is. What's the worst that can happen? They don't read it, right? But the best that can happen is it may catch their attention. So that's one way to get your name in front of the hiring manager. Some people also use LinkedIn, depending on your situation. If you have LinkedIn Premium, which I'm not trying to sell, but one thing that's helpful is you can direct message somebody and have a brief version of that to the hiring manager. Again, showing up in person, appropriate with a small company in some industries, in some situations. Definitely, if it's something that has a public face, you want to show up and visit and partake as a customer, and then use that information in your cover letter. Targeted mailing, we talked about that. You're basically writing the cover letter in an email form for the job they're not advertising to show what you can do to address the key business needs or problems or challenges. How do you know what those are? Either you know the industry and the company really well, or you do research and networking to learn from people on the inside what the business needs and challenges and trends are. And then you send that email with your resume attached, and then you call and ask for the meeting. They may not meet with you, but sometimes someone will meet with you even if they don't have an immediate need for your skills, because they can see you're somebody that might be valuable down the line. Then I always mention briefly, you can have a target campaign for your ideal job and ideal company. However, caveat, don't spend 100% of your job search time on one company, no matter how ideal and wonderful they are. But you can give yourself permission to spend 10% of your job search time and talk to customers, competitors, vendors, suppliers, employees, reading everything you can related to it so that you can, when you're ready, make that pitch with that target mailing, targeted email to what you've learned from all this talking to customers, competitors, vendors, suppliers. Again, that's a big research project for that dream company. But again, it works. It's just that it's not going to get you a job in 1 month, right? Usually this is a longer process. Recruiters, headhunters, very briefly, again, for some of us like me, it's 0. But if you're not sure whether they could be useful for you, you could always take a meeting with one if one is reaching out to you. They can be a great source of up-to-date information, and you can get direct salary feedback. What is my market value in this company, in this industry, this location? What should my range be for salary? They can get you in the door to more companies, including some that maybe you haven't heard of. But remember who they work for, the company, not you. You should never have to pay for this. And typically they want same job, same experience, same job, same industry, the cookie cutter placement, because that's what they get paid for. So if you're any type of career shift or career change, recruiters are probably not going to be there for you. But it doesn't mean you can't get a job in your new target. It's just going to take the networking and the research and the work on your part. Best way to get a good recruiter is to follow the money. Ideal is to have a hiring manager in your target industry tell you, here's a recruiter I've used and trust. I've paid them to place people for me, in my team. Or even a peer. If a peer had a good relationship, good experience with a specific recruiter. But remember, they're not there to help you get your hopes and dreams met. Good ones will be balancing your needs with the employer needs, but the employer is their customer, their main. So again, briefly, why this networking thing is so important is most jobs are not advertised either yet or ever. The yet is true for everything. If you think about it, there's a time lag between when the manager is thinking, I think we need somebody, or so-and-so is not coming back from their leave, or the needs of the company are shifting, and then getting a job rec approved by powers above. Yes, we can commit that money. Yes, we can advertise it in such and such a way. In a bureaucratic company like Mass General, where I used to work, this took quite some time between when the manager said, yeah, we want to replace Susie Q that left, and we need to get that going right away. There would be a significant time lag. Could be a week, could be several weeks. Less bureaucratic, smaller companies, more nimble, it's faster, but there's still that time period when if you're in the door talking to them, finding out what their needs and preferences and challenges are, you're the first one in line, right? Because it's not posted yet. And some jobs are not posted ever. I know this is surprising sometimes if you're used to highly bureaucratic structured companies where everything is advertised and that's the policy and people think it's the law. It's good practice, certainly it's best practice. But some things are, even if it is posted on a job board or on a company website, are not widely advertised because the advertising costs them money. And sometimes they are heavily relying on employee referrals to fill jobs. Some companies fill as many as 50% of jobs with employee referrals, which is a little daunting sometimes when you think about it, except that, again, that puts some of that control in your seat, you in the driver's seat, to build those relationships, connect with people. And even now, people hire people, not resumes, and they hire people, not LinkedIn profiles or online databases. And by talking to people, asking for advice, asking for feedback, asking what else you should be doing, who else you should be talking to, you're going to uncover all kinds of new information about who got a recent grant. I know there was one situation in my past career when we knew that a certain organization had gotten a big state and federal grant to open these workforce development career centers for the public, but they didn't exist yet. So we kept checking in with our networks. Have you heard anything? When is it coming? When is it coming? Are they hiring yet? But we were already networking and talking to the people that we at least thought would be involved, even though they were going to be hiring a lot of new managers. So that was, they were not advertised. When they did come along, yes, they were advertised, but some of us were well positioned even before it was advertised. And lots of ways to network, but I've talked a lot about informational interviews, but there's also, and a lot of resources for that. Nicole mentioned the herd. You may or may not find the exact target company you're looking for in the herd, but you're highly likely to find the industry sector or job function in the herd. Tufts Career Networking Group on LinkedIn is just anyone who's a Tufts alum or sometimes other affiliations with Tufts that want to join the group. You can message people for free inside of a group, which is nice. LinkedIn, we've discussed, for connecting with alumni, to ask for that informational interview. Tufts Online Community is not really organized as a career networking database, but once you do the research on LinkedIn, then you can look in the online community to get a direct email, which is great as a follow-up to LinkedIn, right? If I reach out to an alum on LinkedIn and ask to connect and ask if we can have a chat about, because I'm really interested in their company, their role, If I don't hear back within a day or two, then go to the online community to look up their direct email. Many people have a personal or a professional or both email in the online community. Professional associations I've mentioned, in addition to being a great way to going to meetings, having that visibility, building those relationships naturally. If you're in the association, you get access to the member list, right? Which is another great resource of people in your field. We talked about social media briefly. And then not forgetting, your friends, family, Chinese cooking class, dog walkers, you meet dog walk people you meet in the park. Because even people that are not in your, first of all, if someone's in your Chinese cooking class, right, you don't know what industry or what job they're in unless you ask and chat about that. And secondly, even if somebody's in a very different role, they could be one nice degree of separation from exactly what you want. I know we're at 2:00, so I don't have time for my fun networking stories, but we talked about why, right? You're going to expand your contacts in your target area of interest. You're going to learn more about trends, about the company needs that are specific to help you know about that company. Hopefully earn referrals, and earn referrals to be an employee referral, and getting advice, right? What recruiters should I use? What should I be looking at? I'll skip through this, but again, stressing with networking, also seek to help, offer to help, look for ways to make it mutually beneficial, even though if you're not always sure right away what that might be. If you haven't done a lot of networking, informational interviewing type of things before, highly recommend that you read some articles or possibly those old things called books about it, or the chapter on that in a job search book, because it's just really helpful to have some perhaps scripts or samples of how people approach asking for it, how people follow up, how people conduct the informational interview. We talked about other ways to be visible, but one of the things I haven't mentioned is writing. If you like to write, you can write a guest post on someone else's blog in your industry. You could start your own. You could do writing in a newsletter for your professional association. Lots of ways to use writing as visibility and ways to connect with and be seen as knowledgeable or valuable. I know we've come to our 2:00 time. Just one more underline to use all the job search methods and allocate your time according to the effectiveness of the month. And remembering to get support of all different kinds. The job search, many people say, is the hardest job they've ever done. Ask for advice, not jobs. Target companies, not jobs. And then lots of resources, which I won't page through, but just to tell you, there's lots of links and ideas about mindfulness and meditation and visualization resources to tap into that if you haven't done it before, or if you have, as well as other more topical area resources for the job search. Let's look at questions. And thank you for joining us. And I apologize for going over time. Too much information, but great questions.
I think one of the questions that came up a few times, a version of it, is what is Tufts Handshake? What is the herd?
Okay.
Each school, has their own sort of platform for job listings, platform perhaps for networking and mentoring.
Right.
Most of them have their own LinkedIn groups. So I put, the link in to the chat. It's the list of career services by school. And really that's a key sort of site for all of you to go through to see what does your particular school or college offer for alums. But there are some, resources like the Tufts LinkedIn, the Tufts University Career Networking Group on LinkedIn. It's the group that I manage. It's the largest group for all alums and students, and there are about 22,000 folks, and it's really active. We get at least one posting a day, jobs, career events, resources, advice. And I've even seen recently, Leslie, that some job seekers are posting sort of a little blurb like, I am, I'm looking for this role. I've done this kind of work. I was laid off recently.
Mhm.
And alums are responding, are
Yeah.
saying, hey, message me
Right.
directly, or,
Right.
tell me more about what you're looking for.
Right.
So I think it really is, there are a lot of resources for each school. Just, check that
Mhm.
out on the link that I provided.
Thank you, Nicole. That's very helpful.
And then let me see, someone did throw in a question about, or maybe it was more of a comment. Well, question, how to ask for informational interviews before or simultaneously applying for a job.
Okay. If I'm hearing correctly, part of the question is how, and some of it is when. When should I do this?
Right, probably, yeah.
Well, the when is, for example, what I tell people is, if your relationship is so strong with the person that you're asking for the networking informational meeting with, that they're going to call you back or text you back or email you back that day. It's somebody you already know well, or it's your mother's best friend from college who, dropping her mom's name is going to get you that call back instantly. Great. You can wait. You can work on that cover letter and not submit it until after you talk to that person. But unless you have that kind of, I know I'm going to get instant response relationship, my view is get the application in to the system and then go to work on reaching out to, but again, if you're taking some time to edit and rework your resume and cover letter, you could put out a few requests for an alum to connect and chat with you about the job. That's what I would say is you want to get that application in process and in the mail, so to speak, in the email, in the cloud, in the database, and then be working on getting as to the how to ask for informational interviews. Look for articles on themuse.com, look for information on our website. Career Center website has a lot of good samples and information about what language people use, as well as I said, chapters in job search books from the library can give you, again, sample language and samples showing you sort of how to structure the informational interview. Great question, just a little more detailed. More questions or comments or?
Well, one other resource I wanted to mention that I don't know if you mentioned, Leslie, is that through the Office of Alumni Engagement, we have regional chapters. So there's an alumni chapter or club in almost every state, some multiple in the states, in our large cities. There are also shared interest groups. So we have some, really active groups like the Entrepreneurial Network, the Tufts Lawyers Association. We also have identity-based groups, so diverse identity or gender identity. And so that I'll throw that link in again. It's basically on the same page where you can access the alumni directory /online community. But those are great organizations. Reach out directly to the leader or the person who's listed as the chair, or or check to see if they have an event happening, whether it's a virtual event or it's, more often now is that they're doing in-person events to bring people together in those cities. And I was just noticing there's a Seattle event, there's a Cape Cod event, things that are happening. So you can find out about those on the Alumni and Friends event calendar. And some of those groups, those shared interests and regional groups, have their own LinkedIn groups or Facebook pages. So you can really come together. So I'll throw that link back in.
Thank you so much for that reminder, Nicole, because again, with more time, I could tell you anecdotal stories of people who, they go to the Washington, D.C., alumni student networking event, and they make alum to alum connections that lead to informational interviews, that lead to job interviews. People planning to move to a new city, and they reach out to the alumni leaders of the San Francisco Tufts Alliance, for example, and get ideas and leads and connections, even before they move You can, and that's, the increase in in-person events is great, but some of these groups are continuing to also do Zoom or remote events. And what's cool about that is, again, if you're planning to relocate, but you haven't done it yet, I always tell people, go to the professional association meetings, go to the conferences, go in person when you can. But if you're able to attend remotely to that Seattle, Washington professional group association or alumni group meeting, that's great too. It's as well as LinkedIn groups. Yep. Thanks, Nicole. Other questions?
I did throw in a link. I did throw a link into the directory of associations. So you had mentioned that within the associations, that you can get access to those through the online community career resources, but also at your public library. But a lot of them are free, the association databases.
Right.
So let me look to see if there are other questions. I don't see anything else coming through. I'll just scroll through here to see. And
I have one other sort of unusual suggestion, which is just for the heck of it, pull up good old meetup.com, which is mostly, if you're familiar with it, it's knitting groups. It's what I love in Boston. You can get the late risers hiking group. Sign me up, right? And as opposed to the people that get up at 5 a.m. to drive to New Hampshire for the day, they have all of those activity clubs and groups, but they also have some professional groups that are based on an industry area or a problem area in the world. And they use Meetup just as their platform to get together. My favorite example was I had a person I was working with who was finishing a PhD, who had never worked in the outside world. He had only gone to school for many, many years. He was quite nervous about this, but he knew he wanted to work in the world, and he knew he wanted to work on epigenetics. Honestly, at the time, I wasn't really sure what it was, but I knew how to spell it. And I said, well, let's put it into Meetup just to see. And sure enough, there was an epigenetics meetup the next week in Boston. He went for 2 or 3 months, I think 3 months, and he ended up meeting people there that got him the job lead, that got him the job. And by that time, we'd had time to sort of practice for interviews and kind of get him ready for the world, as opposed to. So you never know. Not every keyword yields a perfect meetup, but you can also try that kind of keyword search into Google, looking for meetings, looking for special events that may not be, like, this wasn't connected with an official professional association. It was just a bunch of people in Kendall Square that started it up because they wanted to get together and bring speakers. So thanks for the reminder. You were talking about those other groups, and affinity groups reminded me that.
And Eventbrite too. Eventbrite, you don't have, you often go to Eventbrite because you see an event, that you want to sign up for. A lot of organizations use it, but you can just go to eventbrite.com, and see what's going on out there in the world.
Great. Any last minute questions or?
I don't see anything. I've been typing very quickly to try to get some of the direct messages responded to. So I think we're good, Leslie.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful questions, everyone, and for bearing with me as I gave you too many slides and too much information, because I wanted to put in everything that I could think of along the way, in addition to extra resources about mindfulness and other job search information. So good luck with your next steps with job searches, and we hope we'll see you at another event along the way. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Everyone have a great day.
We stop the recording.
Let's see.